Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Chicago. My name's Paul Barger, and with Justin Notstein, we're the co-chairs of the NAM 26 meeting this week. I'm pleased to welcome you to Chicago. Hope you had a great time at the opening reception last night, and for those of you that attended the workshops and the panel discussion, hopefully we've gotten the meeting off to a good start. Before we get started with the program today, there are a couple of safety items that I'd like to touch base on. As far as emergency exits go, in the hotel here on this level, we have two main emergency exits. You probably saw the bank of doors to the left of the registration area as you came in. There's also a second bank of doors down the hall over in this section of the floor in among the Columbus meeting rooms that we'll be using for the parallel sessions later this morning. There's also a smaller emergency exit door just out the side doors here of the main hall. Secondly, the hotel has an emergency response number in case any emergency comes up during your stay here. You can reach their response center by dialing 55 from any hotel phone. After our plenary lecture this morning, we'll be having our coffee break out in the foyer here at the between the meeting rooms on this level. We do ask that everyone move out of this room quickly. Don't linger in here, please, because we have to set this room up for 4 parallel sessions in about a half an hour. So please move out of this room and into the foyer for the coffee break. The parallel sessions will all 8 parallel sessions will be on this floor of the hotel, 4 of them in this space, and then 4 over in the Columbus space over in this area. Tonight, our exhibit and poster sessions will be 1 floor down below. That floor will open up at 5:30 this evening. However, if you've got a poster this evening in this evening session, you can go down at lunchtime. You'll have access to the poster boards that are sort of surrounding the exhibit area down on the floor below us. One thing I want to comment is that we're very appreciative of our sponsors for this meeting. You'll see their logos flashing up on the rotating slides in front of every session, as well as in signs throughout the meeting space. It's their financial support that really ensures the vitality of this meeting, and it allows us to encourage participation by students by helping us hold the line on student registration fees. Before we get to our award presentation this morning, I would like to acknowledge our 2 honorary co-chairs for NAM 26. Nick Delgas from Purdue University and Ralph Bertolacini, retired from Amoco Oil. So I'd like to ask Nick and Ralph to stand up, and let's show them a level of their appreciation. The two of them, they've had made many scientific and leadership contributions to the catalysis community over their long careers. So let me turn our attention to the event at hand, which is the Eugene J. Houdry Award in Applied Catalysis. Eugene Houdry was one of the cornerstones of modern practical catalysis, and his contributions are celebrated with the Eugene J. Houdry Award in Applied Catalysis, sponsored by Clarion. NACS has been presenting this award every other year since 1971, and you can see the list of awardees shown here. Eugene Houdry was born in France in 1892 after receiving a degree in mechanical engineering and serving in the French Army in World War I, he became interested in high-octane gasoline because his hobby was car racing, road racing. And he developed a partnership with other scientists, and over the early mid-20s, late 20s, they developed a process for the catalytic cracking of lignite to gasoline. Unfortunately, that process wasn't able to be economically attractive at the time, but in 1930, he had, with interest from U.S. investors, he moved to the United States, settled in Paulsboro, New Jersey, and soon thereafter established the Houdry Process Company in conjunction with the Vacuum Oil Company, which eventually became Mobil. In 1937, they commercialized the first commercial-scale catalytic reactor at the Sun Oil refinery in Marcus Hook, and it was that process doubled the amount of gasoline one could get out of a barrel of oil. It was a remarkable improvement at the time. In the 1940s, this process was very important in the production of aviation gas for World War II, and produced over 90% of the gas that was shipped from the U.S. to England. In the 1950s, Houdry turned his attention to the automotive catalytic converters and formed a oxy-catalyst company that commercialized some of the first catalytic converters. And we'll hear a little bit more about that in our talk this morning. And just to show, here's a picture of Houdry in his Bugatti racing car testing the sample of the experimental gasoline from their labs in France. So with that, I'd like to introduce Galen Fisher from the University of Michigan, and after many years at General Motors Research Labs. Galen's been at, to introduce our speaker this morning. Galen's been at 17 NAM meetings. He was on the organizing committee for NAM 11 in 1989 and the co-chair for NAM 22 in Detroit just a few years back. So with that, let me turn it over to Galen.
Good morning. Thank you, Paul. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hai-Ying Chen, who will be talking shortly about the development of after-treatment systems for NOx emissions control, mainly for diesel vehicles. It's very appropriate he's receiving an award named for Eugene Houdry, who received patents and awards for developing the catalytic converter more than 65 years ago. Hai-Ying received his PhD from Fudan University in Shanghai, China, and joined Northwestern University in 1996 as a postdoc working in Wolfgang Sockler's group. Interestingly, Professor Sockler was the 1993 Houdry Award winner. At Northwestern, Hai-Ying developed new ways of exchanging metals into zeolites, and this made him very familiar with zeolite properties for his future work. In 2000, he joined Johnson Matthey, where he's been working since. We'll talk about three major developments that he has been involved with at JMI. Lignos absorbers for diesel exhaust, helping Cummins to be the first diesel engine manufacturer to meet 2010 emission standards, which it did 3 years early in 2007. Small pore zeolite-based catalysts using impregnated copper have now become the standard SCR catalyst for diesel engines to meet NOx emission standards using urea to form ammonia. And a system that may help heavy-duty engines meet new standards using a combination of passive NOx absorbers and SCR catalysts that are designed to work together. That's what you'll hear about. What you won't hear about is the significant work that Hai-Ying has done in developing three-way catalysts for gasoline engines by Johnson Matthey. Nor will you hear that he has over 60 peer-reviewed publications and over 140 granted patents all around the world. In 2014, he received an alternate sponsored fellowship from Pacific Northwest National Labs that allowed him to work there for a while on SCR reaction mechanisms. That same year, he also received the Herman Pines Award from our own local sponsoring Chicago Catalysis Club, and along with other awards that he's received. So it's a pleasure to introduce someone who's made contributions in so many areas of emissions control that have led to a better environment for us all. Please welcome Hai-Ying Chen.
Good morning. Thanks to Paul and Galen for the introduction. Also, I would like to take the opportunity to thank for the people who nominated me for this prestigious award. It's my great honor to receive the 2019 Eugene Houdry Award in Applied Catalysis. Before my talk, I want to pay a tribute to Eugene Houdry, one of the greatest inventor and visionary in catalyst technology. As an inventor, he is well known for his invention of catalytic cracking process. This process is still widely used today. As a visionary, he pioneered the concept of catalytic converter for controlling automotive exhaust emissions and industry pollution. In this 1952 patent, he established a process. And then in his 1952 patent, he established an early version of monolithic converter concept to reduce the back pressure. I don't know it for sure, but each time when I look at the picture on the NACS website, it always leads me to believe he was holding a catalytic converter, which is, if you compare this to this one, is surprising. It just looks very similar. That's why you need to believe that's what he was holding. He recognized for automotive emission control, he recognized there are many challenges has to overcome. So in this in this 1956 patent, he says, as an automotive catalyst, it has to be must have good physical stability to withstand the severe mechanical shock. He also said, recognized for the cal has to be extremely thermally durable to tolerate temperatures up to 2,000 Fahrenheit or 1100 Celsius. Furthermore, the catalyst has to be extremely active to work in a wide range of flow rates or space velocities. And then finally, he says, the catalyst should furthermore be highly resistant to contaminants and chemical poisons. So recognize those challenges, he formed a company, Oxy Catalyst Company, to develop solutions to tackle those technical challenges. Over the years, he was able to overcome the first three challenges, but the last one. In fact, nobody was able to overcome that. So in 1974, the government had to step up to ban lead from the field for automotive applications. And then over the years, the sulfur level in the field had to be gradually or continuously reduced for meeting tighter emission standards. And then it's because that his timing with his invention is the fuel is just not ready. Once the fuel is available in 1974, and then the catalytic converter was adopted in 1975. It is able to reduce the tailpipe emissions by 50%, as we see here. Over the years, with the advance of technology, the catalytic converter were able to achieve more than 90% reduction efficiency of the pollutant, which is carbon monoxide, non-methane hydrocarbons, and then nitrogen oxides. The achievement of the catalytic converter can literally be seen from these two pictures, which was taken 40 years apart. In this picture, taken in 1973 at New York, you see those big cities was choked by those brownish smogs. And then 40 years later, even with the additional increase, substantial increase of number of vehicles, the city become much cleaner. One of the key technology used in the catalytic converter is three-way catalysts. The catalysts, they are extremely active, converting oxidized CO to CO2, and then oxidizing hydrocarbon to CO2. And then we use the NOx to nitrogen. And then these three reactions occur simultaneously. So that's why it's called three-way catalyst. For the catalyst to function well, it has the fuel to the engine has to be controlled at the fuel ratio near the stoic point, so that the amount of oxygen and then the amount of reductant available in the exhaust can perfectly balance, goes through these three reactions at the same time. This, however, inevitably leading to limit the fuel efficiency of those engines. And then diesel engines can offer higher fuel efficiency, but those engines normally operate at higher air fuel ratio or fuel lean or oxygen-rich conditions. Under those conditions, the three-way catalysts, still they can catalyze the CO oxidation to CO2 or hydrocarbon to CO2. However, because the large excess of oxygen, there is no reductant available to reduce NOx. Therefore, reduce the NOx emission on diesel engine become a major challenge back to late 90s when the emission standards started applied for the diesel vehicles. So my talk today will focus on the developing the catalyst technology for the diesel NOx emission control. Back to 90s, there was two the potential technologies for diesel NOx emission control. The first one actually is just an extension of the three-way catalyst, which I will go to in the detail just a few minutes. What it is based on the NOx storage and then reduction, or sometimes it's also called NOx trap catalyst. The other technology is trying to develop a catalyst and then also find a selective reducing agent which can selectively reduce the nitrogen or the nitrogen oxide to nitrogen in the presence of large excess of oxygen. There's two options. One is using the fuel or hydrocarbons available on the vehicle. Obviously, this is a preferred path. And then the other one is developed in the 70s, widely using for the stationary emission controls is rely on ammonia to selectively reduce NOx. However, for mobile applications, ammonia is a toxic gas. So to get the ammonia, it in general for mobile applications can be utilized the urea, which it can decompose and hydrolyze to generate that ammonia. So I'll get to the details of the two technologies, how we develop it from a potential to become commercial product. For NOx servers, again, because there is not enough reducing agent to reduce the NOx. So the concept was to, under normal ring operation, the diesel normal ring operation conditions, we rely the catalyst to oxidize the NO, that's majority component of the NOx emissions from the engine exhaust, oxidize it to NO2, which now become acidic compounds. And then these acidic compounds will react with a basic storage component on the catalyst, for example, barium, and then form this barium nitrate. And then, so then the NOx will store on the catalyst instead of emit to the tailpipe. So what you see is, now, this one is lab testing conditions. What you see is, here is the NGL, the inlet NOx emissions. And then, so when this passes through the catalyst, you see it stores on the catalyst. So we achieve a high removal efficiency. However, because it relies on the storage mechanism, gradually the catalyst will get filled. And then when the coverage gets higher and higher, the conversion efficiency slowly drops. At a point, the catalyst can no longer meet the requirement. So at that moment, the engine will have to go to a rich operation, or what you see is, under those conditions, the oxygen drops down to low level, and then inject or generate CO reducing agent, and then reduce those stored NOx. And then what you see is, under those conditions, then it comes in, the reducing agent comes in, and then under those reducing atmosphere, the nitrate become unstable, so they decompose and then release NOx from the storage component, and then subsequently get reduced by this by the PGM platinum to metal components. And then for this one, actually, the rhodium is more effective than the platinum component, so normally incorporate another rhodium component to that. So with that, then we act with the reducing agent to form this nitrogen. So what you see is, go back to this, the trace is, under that, is starting to release, the NOx release, you do see a NOx spikes come from the catalyst. And then, so regenerate the storage size, and then the catalyst become fully functional again. So basically, it just repeats the cycle again and again. So as already you can tell, this is pretty complicated system. For the catalyst to function, to remove the NOx from the tailpipe, actually involves 4 steps. The first one is oxidize NO to form NO2, and then for this one, you need optimize the catalyst. In general, platinum-based catalyst is the most active catalyst available. However, then obviously, then how we optimize the platinum particle size, and then selection of the support, and then the selection of promoters to further enhance those reactions. That's a tremendous work has to be carried out. Now you have this NO2 formed by the platinum-based catalyst, and then it has to form this nitrate. So the selection of the NOx storage materials become critical. And then furthermore, actually, even for this reaction, there is another oxidation reaction happens. So the interaction of those storage components together with that PGM, or the dispersion of those, or the location, again, becomes extremely critical for this step. In the reduction reaction, it gets destabilized. But in general, for this happens, the hydrogen actually is more reactive compared with COs. So then, again, optimize the PGM component to enhance the water gas shift reaction to help that regeneration process. And then finally, the released NOx react with CO form nitrogen, and then again PGM selection, and then the support, and then the promoters. So with those, has to optimize all those components. So it's a very complicated system. But with all those challenges, we were able to develop a system in 2007 and then implement on the pickup trucks meeting the 2010 emission standards. So as said, the cows, if you look at the cows, is pretty complicated. It has layer structures, and then those have to be optimized. And then that's also still has a lot remaining challenges in this technology. Particularly, it still is the selection of the materials, and then the optimizing the interactions with those components. And then also the storage materials to further enhance the efficiency. If you look at the cows, actually the commercial cows has a lot of cows. That mainly is because the storage, the utilization of the storage component is not as effective or as high as we want to be. So that is a major area is still to improve the capacity, and then the sulfur tolerance, which is also, I didn't have time to get into. That's another major area. And as mentioned, for these cows to work, actually it has to rely on engine control. You operate periodically under lean and rich condition. So the engine control to achieve the desirable rich mixture, so effectively regenerate the storage side, that itself is also its area for investigation. And then indeed, recently people have found we use the fast pulsing, the lean rich pulsing, can significantly improve the NOx storage performance, both at low temperature and high temperature. So understanding on the reaction mechanism that will further advance those technologies. So then with that, then I will move on to, because those complexity then is starting drives the power manufacturers actually more favor the selective catalytic reduction technology. So on this, again, there's two paths can be considered. The first one is rely on the hydrocarbon SCR catalyst. So what it is find a catalyst so it can, the NOx, even in the presence of large amount of excess of oxygen, the hydrocarbon can selectively reduce this NOx, get to nitrogen. And then indeed, there's a significant amount of work carried out in the late 1990s. And then there was at the time, there was a catalyst, for example, the iron exchange zeolite, iron ZSL5. It did show very high NOx conversion efficiency, near 100%. However, to achieve those high efficiency, the temperature has to be operated at 400, about 400 to 500, 550, that range. And then typical, the diesel exhaust temperature is around 200, 250, that range. So there is clearly there's a temperature gap for this technology to be practical. However, the studies on the reaction mechanism leads to much better understanding of what's going on in the cows. What in this piece of work it shows what the hydrocarbon, what it can, the reason it can selectively reduce the nitrogen is it reacts with the NOx and then form a nitrogen containing compounds, and then these compounds further it further transfer to ammonia, and then combine with another nitrogen oxide form this nitrogen. So indeed, now if you feed the gas with ammonia or amines, what we see is the reaction rate, the kinetic rate it's much faster. So that's leading to more favor is using ammonia directly as a reducing agent. as you can see here, now if there is ammonia available on this, and then with the copper zeolite cows, actually it's able to achieve very high NOx conversion efficiency from 200 say to 350 C, about 90%. And then that is the temperature range typically the diesel engine operates for the diesel exhaust temperature range of. There is another type of cows, the iron zeolite cows. Although at low temperature, it has lower NOx conversion efficiency at lower temperature. However, at higher temperature, say about 350 Celsius, it does give higher overall NOx conversion. The reason is at those high temperature, then the copper cows becomes too active, so it's starting to catalyze this ammonia oxidation. So there is insufficient ammonia available to reduce the NOx. While the copper cow, the iron cows, is more selective under those high temperatures. However, at the expense of lower temperature activity. The reason of the metal exchange, the zeolite, was so active and then selective for the ammonia STR reaction is because the catalyst has two functions. The first one is it has those it has a surface area, and then more importantly, it has those exercise. The exercise provides for ammonia absorption. And then also it provides the same exercise or exchange size, provide exchange size to anchor those transition metals, for example, copper or iron onto those. The reason is we need the transition metal ions on those zeolites is we need those to activate the anode, form the NO2 or some type of oxide, the absorption complex on this. There's still a lot of debate on this. I'm pretty sure you will hear during the week about what exactly those compounds are on the surface. But nevertheless, it's this reaction, it needs activation step. And then this activation step is relies on the metal to do that. And then in addition, those metal exchange sites also provide a additional acid size for ammonia absorption and then activation. So with that, then the cows, as I said, can achieve high conversion efficiencies at the low of the temperature while the diesel engine operates. However, the cows prior to the 2007, they can achieve only when they are relatively fresh. Again, as mentioned earlier, Houdry pointed out those cows have to be summarily durable. Again, those cows have to be durable. So with those cows, what we see is once starting exposed to the temperature to say 670 Celsius, which is minimum temperature requirement for this type of replication. And then what we see is that the conversion gradually lost. And then after 64 hours, now it barely achieved 90% NOx reduction efficiency. So clearly the cows, they just don't have the stability required for this type of application. So if you look the kinetics as a function of the agent or exposed to a high temperature as a function of time, what we see is there's two deactivation processes. The first one is this rapid drop of the performance, and then followed by a gradual one. So with this trend actually guide us to study what exactly what the cause leading to the cows deactivation. We know zeolite, at that time there was a long theory was just zeolite because it's metastable phase, so the zeolite itself just does not want to have the solubility. However, when we look into when we look at the zeolite, the framework structure, what we found it's characterized by its surface area or the crystallinity we see actually it can maintain high surface area, or there's some drop of crystallinity, but it is still maintain high, and then those trend does not match with the rules of performance. It's really the rules of performance match well is to the properties is this the ammonia storage capacity, or in a way indirectly related to the exercise. And then indeed, if we monitor the exercise, what we found is lose this Bronson exercise because the delineation process. So with that, then this guides us to looking for zeolite materials which can have either more stable the exercise, or it can has higher the Bronson acidity, and then through agents it can maintain those the acidities. And then what we found was the copper chalcite catalyst with this one, it does give higher initial ammonia storage compared with, say, the beta zeolite available at that time. And then once it's exposed to high temperatures, typically we call agents, it does still show decline of the ammonia storage capacity. However, after those agents, it still shows comparable or higher capacity ammonia storage capacity compared with the available copper beta zeolite at that time. So indeed, when we test the SDR activities on those calories, what we see is now those fresh performance, first of all, the small pore or the copper chalcite cows actually offers higher activity compared with the beta zeolite. And then once it's treated to a higher temperature, say 70 C or 64, it still maintains above 90% conversion efficiency. So now become practically attractive. And then furthermore, when we expose to test out the stability 900 C for 1 hour, the beta zeolite is down to here now, and then this one still actually maintains close to 90%. So these cows now, they become a commercially viable solution for this application, for real application. In this work, what we found interesting was not just the chalcite can do. Actually, any majority of the small pore zeolite we tested, it all show improved stability after those agents. For example, we test SAP34, which is chalcite structure, and then this CF34, which is iron structure. But then it's all have, and then if you age at 900 C, again, we test a few more LEV structures and then ETR structure. As you see, now it all maintains a high conversion. In contrast, the large pore or the medium pore, they lose the performance significantly. So it appears it's the small pore nature of the zeolite offers that significantly improve some stability. There's another advantage of the small pore zeolite supported cows is this N2O selectivity. N2O is also a greenhouse gas, and then actually its greenhouse gas effects is 300 times CO2. So low CO2 formation is highly desirable for this type of for these cows. And then as we see for those large pore or medium pore, we have say 70, and then with the small pore, we are substantially lower than the large pore or medium pore. So that's another advantage. So what's the reason why the small pore offer this? And then is that because the structure, simply because the structure most more durable? So we carry out the XRD, in situ XRD to look the relative, follow a peak intensity, or in a way monitor the crystallinity as a function of temperature. What do you see actually for the zeolite we use in these two cases, the beta zeolite and the chalcite, actually announce the parent zeolite themselves, the stability actually they are comparable. The difference was when copper was incorporated, with the beta zeolite and then the copper incorporation actually destabilize the zeolite structure at temperature above 800 Celsius. What the chalcozite, the small pore chalcozite, it contains. So the theory was with the copper incorporation and then during this high temperature treatment, the fluorination process will occurs and then the aluminum was starting bound with copper and then that had if it moved out of the frame, the pore or the cages, and then it will cause the zeolite structure collapse as the beta zeolite. However, with the small pore nature, and then that spherical restrictions prevent the copper or the copper aluminum migration and then offer that stability. So kind of that explains in general, the small pore zeolite offer this better thermal stability. On the N2O formation, what we found was if you simply look the N2O decomposition temperature on the beta zeolite, on the large pore beta zeolite, the N2O decompose at lower temperature than on the small pore. Again, it's presumably because the pore restrictions, because the small pore is confining those ammonium nitrate inside pore, less decomposition, so there's less N2O formation. Another added benefit was actually now we truly utilize the molecular sieve effects. In the exhaust, actually, yes, the hydrocarbon is low, but there is certain levels of hydrocarbons. With those large pore support, large pore zeolite support, or even medium pore, once you have hydrocarbons add to the feed, but in reality, they will be hydrocarbons in the feed. What we see is the performance is inhibited by the hydrocarbon significantly. Well, with the small pore, which take chalcozite as an example, it's about 3.8 atmosphere opening, and then most the hydrocarbons is bigger than that. So the hydrocarbons just simply could not enter the pore of the zeolite. So, and then with that, what we see is the has no impact to the performance. So with all those advantages of the small pore zeolite, so the copper, chalcozite, cows, among a few other small pore structures, was commercialized in 2010 and then meeting the very strict US EPA 2010 emissions for all these heavy-duty vehicles. Earlier I mentioned there is another CALS technology, is the iron zeolite CALS. It has an advantage at high temperature. It has better selectivity compared with the copper CALS. The issues with the iron CALS is that low temperature, lacking the performance. However, when we look into the kinetics, just looking at the reactions, what we see is at the very beginning, the reaction rate of the iron and then the copper CALS actually they are comparable. The problem is at the exposure time extended, the iron CALS actually pass a peak and then goes down. And then if we follow the surface absorption complex, what we realized was then the surface nitrogen complex, nitrogen oxide complex actually gradually inhibited by the absorption of ammonia. And then so now the iron is no longer able to catalyze the animal activation. So then that's lead us to, if we can find a catalyst to help that animal oxidation, then we should be able to enhance the iron catalyst, the low temperature. Indeed, if we gradually increase the NO2 to NO ratio in this, and then if you get the 50-50 mixture, actually now the iron catalyst at 200, this one at 200 C, actually it becomes better than the copper catalyst. And then indeed, if you optimize it, the NO2 ratios, and then the iron catalyst actually can achieve very wide temperature windows pretty much the whole range. So that's, again, but the iron cows can work, but have to do the system optimization. In a full system, for emission control systems, this can be achieved because now you have the NOx control cows at the end, but then again, in the exhaust, we need oxidation cows to oxidize this, the carbon monoxide and the hydrocarbons. So we can optimize these oxidation cows to enhance that NO oxidation to achieve the desirable NO2 ratios, which then will enable this iron cows function. But if we use carb cows, and then it will be less dependent on this one. So it depends on the system optimization. We can do either technology work. So then, as I said, with those development, then both the iron and then the carb cows have been commercialized in 2010. Now, 9 years down the road, is there anything to do? No, there is still plenty of work to do. Is still the continuous improve the hydrogen stability. Again, Eugene, he has pointed out the cows has to tolerate 2,000 Fahrenheit. Again, for those people still asking, are they non-C durabilities? And so how we achieve that. And then further reduce those N2O formation, how we do that. And then again, all this one, I think to achieve this is we need better understanding of the SCR reaction methods. I know there is a whole day's sessions just definitely on that, so looking forward to all these talks. Now, all seems like everything is done. No, actually, there are still plenty of challenges ahead. So the current emission standards is about this U level. You can barely see this one. So what do you see is this one, 90%. But for 2025, we have to, all vehicles have to achieve this SULAB standards, which is very tip. What this means is that how challenging that is from this part can tell you. So if you look this, that's the engine out without catalyst control. Direct come off the engine is this engine out hydrocarbon and then NOx. And then the standard for this SULAB is has to be below this 30 milligram target. So that's baseline. What you see is once you turn the vehicle on in about less than 1 minute or 60 seconds, it's already exceed the emission target already. So yes, we can put cows to control those emissions, but for cows to function, you need a certain activation energy, or you need to reach a certain temperature. And then if you look, the temperature at that time is very achieved 200 Celsius. So the cows we develop currently, they are not effective before before this 60 seconds. So that's poses another challenge to meet the future emission standards. So for those, when there is no temperature can do, then again we go back to, and we leave out on the storage calories. Go back to the conventional NOx storage calories. What we see is, yes, it does store NOx. However, the efficiency is low because, again, for those reactions for that storage, again, we need oxidized NO to NO2 and then to react. And then that itself still requires energy that limit that efficiency. For the emissions, that's NOx is one side, there is hydrocarbon on the other side. Well, for hydrocarbons, actually, it's relatively straightforward. If we have put a zeolite to it, what we see is it can achieve large absorption, high efficiency, and then also high capacity. And then the interesting is when we start to modify those zeolite with transition metals, actually we can change those absorption profile or as well as the release profile. So this leads us to believe, can we further tune those zeolite to optimize for the NOx storage? So then this leads us to the zeolite support palladium calories. And then what we see here is with those hard cows, it can actually achieve high NOx trapping efficiency, and then for as well as reasonably high storage capacity as well. So it's also interesting, what we notice is now the capacity is impacted by the type of zeolite framework structure, as you see here. So this one is the beta zeolite here, and then MR5 is here over there, and then the chalcite is here. And then in terms, if we plot those as the different temperatures, what we see is at low temperature, those larger pore beta zeolite give higher trapping efficiency, and then, but with the small pore, is at high temperature, it has higher trapping capacity. And this two plot is the same. It just look at different trapping efficiency. So look at the release temperature. It's also impacted by the framework structure. So beta zeolite release at lower temperature, and then with the small pore, it goes to higher temperature. For hydrocarbons, again, for those we need both NOx storage and hydrocarbon. And then what you see is the small pore or the medium pore, it gave very high trapping efficiency, 100% for a long period of time, until now the temperature reached a certain around say 200, and then the stored hydrocarbon actually get the release from the cows. And then at that moment the cows was not active enough to convert it, so you do see a little bit release, but then subsequently get converted. With small pore, it's not surprising because there is the hydrocarbon just could not enter, so there was a little bit of condensation probably on the external surface, but then after that there is no storage. So then what is unique? Why those palladium zeolite offer that unique property? And then, so this one is characterization. What we found was it's really the unique is those palladium. They has to be atomically dispersed at the exchange sites. So, and then if you look the exacts is on the hydrated sample, you just see it's a single palladium coordination. That's the palladium oxygen coordination, and then there is no palladium additional. And then when you hydrate it, now the zeolite, the palladium come more closer to the exchange sites, and then actually you do see a second share of the palladium silicon coordinations. And then again, because it's closer to the framework, it actually started impact the framework vibration, and then you see at the TOT vibration, the change of the TOT vibration. So clearly, that's clear evidence. It's the palladium at the exchange side contribute to that unique NOx storage and at low temperature. And then indeed, if you follow the surface absorption complex, what we see is this anode directly absorb on the palladium side, form those nitrosyl compounds, and then there appears for this particular chalcite, this one is palladium chalcite, that's two types of palladium sites. Now, with this one absorb on that, there's electron donations, and then that's leading to the appearance of palladium change of valence state, as we see here. And then now, because the palladium gets anode absorptions, and then it's reduced the palladium oxygen coordination numbers. So again, it's really just atomic palladium and then anode directed storage from this nitrosyl. That's offer this unique low temperature storage site. And then the different structures, what we see is now these the absorption bands, or they have different features, again, because that's the framework in the reacting will impact the palladium coordination, which subsequently impact the anode storage site. So now we have a materials can do the storage, and then can do the hydrocarbon storage, depends on what you use. And then if we further incorporate an oxidation function component to the cows, and then that will give us the cows not only do storage, actually do conversion. So for these type of cows, we develop a technology we call diesel post-start concept technology. they just utilize the palladium function. And then with that, what we see is now under the low temperature, in this case was particular case was running under lab condition under 30 Celsius, and then what we see is the hydrocarbons almost 100% storage, and then this is NO trace. We get very high trapping efficiency for reasonably long period of time, and then at those temperatures we achieve almost 100% CO conversion as well. And then when temperature increases, we see is now they start to release at about 200, 250 Celsius. It's not a problem because now at those low temperatures, we rely these cows to store, and then once the temperature above, they say 200, 250 C, and then the other cows can start functioning. For example, SDR cows can function. So they were released from the cows, but then the downstream SDR cows can convert that portion to nitrogen. Indeed, well, what we tested, to test the concept, we put a ECSC cows in front and then put a SDR cows downstream and then has the urea injection between. And then what we see is here is the engine out trace is the red trace, that's the engine out NOx. And then pass through the ECSC cow, which is the purple line, what we see is now at the initial about 50 seconds is almost 100% stored on these cows. And then when the temperature increases get to 200 Celsius, you do see the trapping efficiency lose some trapping efficiency. So you do see now we see some breakthroughs, and actually it's the green trace. Sorry, the ECSC did after the ECSC the green trace. And then at this temperature, when the temperature exceeds the 250 C, and you see actually the NOx come off the cows actually higher than engine, so substantially NOx released from the cows. But like I said, that's not a problem because at this temperature, the SCR cows, it has reached the operation temperature, so we can start inject ammonia to it. And what you see is that portion, the huge spikes can get removed by the downstream SCR cow. So with that all worked well, but again, as mentioned earlier, there is so much variability, or again, those challenges, if you recall, Eugene J has even back to 50s formula. The first one is, does the cows has the thermal stability? And then, so we evaluate the cows up to 800 C or 750 C, the cows actually can behave very well, and then above 800, and then you do see with long exposure time is reduce the performance. Sulfur, because it's a storage cows, and then in general, it concerns if stores NOx, it will store sulfur. But again, for this type of cows I mentioned, it's form nitroso groups on the palladium side, and then that is different from the conventional acid-base storage. And then what you see is with these type of cows, the sulfur actually, the impact is very small compared with the conventional, say, that you would have to form the nitrate. So again, it's rely on different chemistry. However, there are still one major challenge of this one, because now you rely on the palladium at the exchange side, and then if you accidentally reduce the calories, form palladium metal, and then palladium metal sinters. And then once the palladium metal sinters, it's very difficult to redisperse that metal. And what you see is exactly this plot shows. Even the cows is very stable even at the inner atmosphere. However, once you expose to reducing condition, here it's just simply for consistency. I put a -5 CO oxygen. In reality, we add 1% CO to it. So, and at that temperature, reduce the palladium, form metals, and then it just loses that capacity. High temperature treatment, you can redisperse some of the palladium gradually, but it just never will get back to the origin state. So it still remains one of the main areas to remaining challenge to overcome. So with that then, The catalyst technology is still in the development stage. So we need to optimize the capacity, release temperatures, and then understand the mechanism, and then the state of flame, and then again find the potentially different materials to stabilize the flame. Those are very easy. And then for practical use, there is also quantified amount of stored on the catalyst for the monitoring purposes. That itself also is a major challenge as well. So with that, I want to thank all my co-workers at Johnson Massey. It's just really, unless you don't want to copy, I can go through the names. Otherwise, I will just stop here. And then I want to thank Johnson Massey for the permission of this publication. And then also, more importantly, I want to thank all the colleagues in the catalyst community. Many of you are sitting in the audience. Thank you very much for the stimulating discussions. One more thing, I want to thank you for listening and for your operating, the emission control system. So knowingly, actually, you are operating the emission control system. Thank you.
So thank you, Hai-Ying, for your very thorough presentation on the state of automotive emission catalysis. So as